You're listening to Side Hustle Pro, the podcast that teaches you to build and grow your side hustle from passion project to profitable business. And I'm your host, Nicaila Matthews-Okome. So let's get started. Hey friends, hey, we are back with another powerful interview with a side hustler turned full-time entrepreneur. Today in the guest chair, I'm speaking with Jazmin Alvarez, who is the founder and chief curator of Pretty Well Beauty, a Black-owned clean beauty curation destination launched in 2019. She is celebrating 5 years in business this year, 2024, and is a 14-year veteran of the fashion and beauty industry. In today's episode, we talk about Jazmin's journey from content producer to retail founder, and we talk about how a chance meeting led to her having a retail location in the Oculus in NYC. We talk about why what's meant for you is meant for you. And finally, we talk about why you have to believe in yourself so much it's delusional. Now, let's get right into it. So Jazmin, welcome to the guest chair. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's really nice to meet you.
I'm so excited to chat with you because you are the quintessential side hustler, working at Ralph Lauren and then building out this platform. So let's take it back a little bit. When did you become so into clean beauty?
Oh gosh, I would say first of all, I've been into beauty my whole life, and for me, I never really called it clean beauty until like the industry called it that. So it's just, for me, it was always just a way of life. It's kind of how I was raised. It was very kind of unconscious. It didn't really become conscious until I became an adult and I started to experience some health concerns and acne and things of that nature. And I realized everything that my mother had been telling me all those years was like, yep. You got to stop using all of these things. It's bad for you. And I didn't think she knew what she was talking about because, of course, we always think we know best when we're like young and teenager. Like our moms don't know anything. Yep. So, but mommy was right. And so I made the conscious decisions to transition to all clean beauty, I want to say about 12 or 13 years ago. It was a very different time than it is now, where there just wasn't as many options as there are now. And it was kind of a lot of trial and error and having to do a lot of my own research and figure it out and really tap into that science side of myself. Sidebar, I was planning to go to medical school. I was a biochem major back in the day. So I've always been sort of very interested in like the science of things and kind of how things work and how different ingredients play together. And so being able to combine my love of science and natural beauty ingredients was something that I was really excited to delve into all those years ago. And I had no idea it was going to lead me to where I'm at today.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you talk about the whole branding of it. Isn't that so interesting when people brand something you've been doing your whole life? You're like, oh, okay, that's called conscious this, or that's called, you know what I mean? And as you were talking about your mom, I thought about this meme I saw recently that was like, my mom was right all along. I just didn't like her tone. That part. But what kind of things were you doing? Like, what was a part of your upbringing that was clean beauty all along? Because I think now it seems so daunting. Like, oh, how do I be clean with my beauty? Like, I use products that are just at Sephora. So what were you doing that was actually clean beauty?
Well, all of it. My mom's a hairdresser. So I grew up around beauty. I've been around beauty my whole life. So I like to say, like, beauty's in my DNA. It's like, it's really how I was brought up. And my mom, she would always just like whip up things for people's hair using like food, like natural ingredients, and making these treatments for people's hair. And that's how she took care of me and my sister as well. And all of her clients too at the time. And we weren't calling it clean beauty. We didn't call it anything. It was just, it was,
It was deep.
It was just, it was just, we were just using what we knew Mother Nature did best. And it's even with like when I was sick or if I got hurt, like if I got sick, my mother didn't give me cough medication. She would be whipping up something in the kitchen, something disgusting.
Onions and garlic, all of that good
Yeah,
stuff.
like she would have to force me to drink it. Like I hated it, but I look back now and I appreciate it because
Yeah.
that really set the foundation for where I'm at today. And like being rubbed down with aloe vera fresh from the plant. If I got a scrape or a cut, things of that nature. So like it's just how it's always been for me and my family.
And what's your like background? Because as you're talking about aloe vera, I'm thinking about, like Jamaicans and the fact that that's really big for us. So I'm just curious, if your background is also, across the diaspora or if you're, born and raised in America.
Yeah, I was born in California, Bay Area girl. I was raised in New York. I've been here most of my life, but ethnically, like I come from a very multicultural background. Ethiopian, Nicaraguense, Spaniard,
Ooh.
French. Like we're kind of a mosh pit of different cultures, and my family. Like you put us all in a room together, none of us look like we belong to each other. I grew up speaking English and Spanish in the home. Like,
Yeah.
like I was never really a big meat eater. Even though my mother did, oftentimes, like sometimes make it, but I
Yeah.
just was never really interested. So we have a very like rich cultural background in my family. And I grew up sort of exposed to lots of little bits of it. And that just kind of became who I am.
It all makes sense when you go back and you really look at where you come from, right? You just see all the dots lining up. So tell us what career field you ended up pursuing, because I understand that you worked for Ralph Lauren for quite a long time. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so my professional career after abandoning science, I actually ended up going into the fashion industry. So I started.
How and why did you abandon science for fashion?
Oh, so I was a biochem major. I was studying. I was planning to go to medical school. I wanted to be a pediatrician because I love babies and children. But in high school, I never took chemistry. I took anatomy instead of chemistry because I was a dancer, so that was more interesting to me at the time. And so my first introduction to chemistry was organic chemistry in college, and I failed miserably.
That was your
And
introduction to
that was
chemistry?
my
Oh,
very
okay.
first
I
introduction to
understand now.
chemistry. And as a perpetual overachiever, firstborn child, failure was just not something that I did well.
Yeah.
And it made me, I took a year off after my sophomore year of college, went back home to lick my wounds and kind of figure out, okay, well, if I'm not going to, I knew I wasn't going to get into medical school with grades like that in chemistry. I got A's everywhere else, but chemistry, like that was my Achilles heel. And I went back home and I got this like, and I say job, it wasn't even really a job, like thinking about it was probably like a scam, but it was like this company.
Not a scam.
It was this
Were
company
you
that
selling
was like,
knives? No.
I was selling the dream of being a model to people on the street. So there
Oh
was like this
boy.
company. I won't name who they are. They're probably defunct at this point, but I don't want to get sued. But they basically, I worked as like a freelance model scout for them, where I would like basically try and find talent who they could sign to become models, and I would make a commission off of them signing up and paying to be a part of this thing. And through this, I realized, oh, like I'm interested in fashion, knew nothing about the fashion industry, didn't realize that actually even wasn't the fashion industry. It wasn't until I actually started working in fashion, I realized like, that wasn't actually really the fashion industry. But I was like, I want to be a model agent.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I actually ended up transferring and went to school to study fashion.
Okay.
And after I finished school, my first job out of college was at Ford Models. I started my career as a model agent. I was an agent for probably about 3 years. Hated it, I realized, because it's really just kind of like a glorified babysitting / sales job. And I became more interested in the other side of the table, which was casting. So I started assisting different casting directors, started casting models for New York Fashion Week and different advertising projects for like Target and things of that nature. And then photo production literally just kind of fell into my lap. I was working for a photographer at the time, and he's more like a portraits photographer, he had taken some images of the wife of the owner of Rolex. And when the owner of Rolex saw the images of his wife, he loved them so much that he asked him to shoot the Rolex campaign. And because I was working for him at the time at his studio as his studio manager, he was like, I need hair, I need makeup, I need a model, I need all and he wanted me to do this. And I didn't realize at the time that this was a production responsibility, but I did it. And I did it well. And I was there at the shoot and I was like, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe I pulled this off. I want to do more of this kind of stuff. I was so green. I remember calling
it. Did you literally do their hair and makeup, or did you hire in freelancers?
I was contacting the agencies that represented hair and makeup artists and stylists and the model agencies to do the casting. And we ended up booking Carmen Delafice, the iconic white-haired Italian-American model who's like 1 million years old, who still looks fabulous to this day.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did the shoot, and I was like, I want to do more of that. So I started reaching out to different production companies, and I was so green. I would say things like, hey, do you need someone to organize your photo shoots? Like, I didn't even know the lingo or anything. But remarkably, I landed at Art and Commerce, which is, I don't know if you're familiar.
No, what's that?
So Art and Commerce is one of the top agencies in the world for talent. They represent Stephen Meisel, Pat McGrath, all the top photographers and hair and makeup artists. So I ended up getting a job as a producer there, like with absolutely very little experience. And I'm now producing shoots for Vogue with Stephen Meisel and Pat McGrath. I'm doing Prada shoots, Piaga shoots. I'm working with the top talent in the entire world in my, 20s.
What do you think helped you to gain that job? I'm so fascinated by those kind of opportunities where you're kind of green, but you just keep going after it and you reach out and they see something in you.
I think that's what it was. They saw something in me. I think there was a certain level of naivety that I had, where maybe they saw that I was trainable and I was moldable. And that's really where I cut my teeth at Art and Commerce, because there is no other production agency that is like them, the way that they manage their productions. And I know that because of the many of years that I've worked as a producer prior to starting my company. Yeah. And it really did lay down the foundation for where I'm at today. Like it taught me a lot about work ethic. It taught me about being able to really pay attention to all the small, minute details that you think don't really matter, but they really do when you're dealing with that level of talent.
So at this whole point, you're getting into fashion, you're starting your careers in producing. Did you ever consider side hustling, or were you doing any kind of side hustling whatsoever during all of this?
So that really was my side hustle. I kind of went in and out of freelancing. I wasn't technically an employee, like a full-time staff member at Art and Commerce. I was technically like a 1099, like freelancer, even though I was there every day, day in, day out, every single day, like a full-time employee, but I technically wasn't an employee. So, throughout my career in fashion, I kind of went in and out of like being on staff full time to also being a freelancer. And then I would also, because I had a lot of friends that I accumulated over the years who were also freelancers, and they were doing their own little side projects, they would bring me in to use their shoots for them. So,
So you were able to have that flexibility to do other projects outside of work.
Yes.
So certified side hustler.
Depending on where I was at the time and what was on my plate, yes. Yeah. Places like Art and Commerce and Ralph Lauren, absolutely not, because it was so demanding. Like I would be working on probably 2 or 3 different shoots at a time at different timelines in the production. So and at Ralph, like I traveled a lot too. Like most of my shoots were shot abroad. So it was always, I would be home for like a day coming from Europe. And then the next day I would sleep at home, and then I would be off to Mexico or Montauk or somewhere. Like I was always somewhere.
Right. Which sounds glamorous in theory, but what was the experience like?
It wasn't glamorous, but it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of work. And I worked with an A-list team. I like working with people who are true team players, because that's how I am too. We're bigger than the sum of our parts when we're talking about production. You wear so many different hats, and you have to be able to juggle so many different types of people and personalities and know what personalities work together. There's a psychology behind production that people don't really know about, that I was able to really discover throughout the years of working with a lot of really interesting humans, to say the least. I know who not to put on the same shoot together, just because I know that what their interpersonal relationships were like. You really get to know these people in a very intimate way because you're spending 12, 14 hours a day with them. Sometimes you're traveling with them. You're with them more than you are with your friends and family. When you're dealing with these types of shoots. So, yeah.
And I know that had to prepare you for the entrepreneurship life. It's one, you were already kind of living as a freelancer, knowing coming in and out of freelance to full time. When you're a freelancer, you have to take so much more control of your life in a way when you know that you have to really go out there and get the next project and the next project. And sometimes it's a long-term project, but it's still preparing you for that entrepreneur life. So now let's talk about making the shift from content producer to being a retailer. How did you start working towards that?
So I was at Ralph Lauren, and I decided one day that I was going to start an Instagram page, and it was called Pretty Well Beauty. And I did not know that Pretty Well Beauty was going to be a business. It was not my intention whatsoever. It was really just a place for me to talk about something outside of what my 9 to 5 was, or really 7 to 10, if I'm being really it was crazy hours. There's just something, I needed an outlet. I needed something that was outside of what I was doing to make a living, that brought me joy, and that was of genuine interest to me. And it was really just, my intention was to talk about clean beauty and what I liked about it, the brands that I liked, the brands that I was using, the brands that I thought were really getting it right, in terms of being totally clean and not just saying that they are, that were efficacious, that we're not sacrificing the aesthetic, because back in the day, the aesthetic wasn't there. It was very granola, it was very crunchy. It wasn't something you would feel proud about having on display on your vanity. It was something you kind of had hidden away. So I wanted to kind of share that in almost like a mood board style.
So you started that in 2018. You didn't know it would be a business, but as you started it, did you start to see signs that maybe it needs to be a business?
No. I did.
How long did you do the Instagram then before you said, let me launch a website?
About a year. I would say it was about a year. It was right after I left Ralph Lauren, and I was having this sort of internal dialogue of, okay, what to do next? Do I go and try and find my next gig? I was kind of feeling a little bit burnt out at that point, because of the, over a decade of work that I had done as a producer. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue to do that. I knew I loved the work. I just didn't love how disposable you could become. I didn't like the idea and the feeling of being told that, we don't really have the budget anymore, or we're going with somebody. I didn't want to have to keep selling myself. I didn't want to have to. I felt like I put in so much of myself into production, and that I had established enough of a reputation within the industry where I didn't feel like I still needed to be scraping and crawling in the way that I was doing. And I was and for what? For somebody else to make billions of dollars? Yeah. It didn't align with me any longer. And so I was well, what if I explore this Pretty Well Beauty thing? What if I explore this clean beauty world? What would that look like? And so I literally spent about 2 weeks kind of hemming and hawing, should I do this? What would it be? Really just kind of thinking big picture ideas internally. And I was you know what? If I don't actually try it, I'm never going to try it now if I don't do it now. And if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to production. And that
Exactly.
was 6 years ago, and I haven't had to go back. And
Yes. I just
it's
love this.
hard, but
Right. It's not easy, and we'll get into that in a second. But, we're coming off the heels of episode where I talk about how to grow your Instagram for a side hustle. And the whole goal that I want people to understand is sometimes it literally is as simple as starting an Instagram, making it real by starting it. You don't need to know where it's going to go. But by starting to create that content and see what the reaction is, it really does lead you to the next step. And it might not be right away, but it does inform your mind how you feel. Do you like creating this content? Is it energizing you? Are you getting excited about coming up with new ideas for your page? So we're living in a different world. And before it was like, okay, I'm starting a business. I got to go out there and like find a brick and mortar. But now it is as simple as starting a social media page.
it really is. It's really, and I talk to young entrepreneurs all the time, and they ask for my advice on like how they should start. And like, there's no one right way in which to start. The only solution is really just a start. I didn't have all of it figured out when I was first figuring out how to build Pretty Well Beauty. I still don't even have it all figured out, but you just have to start somewhere. You have to start from where you're at. And I always say, like, you leap and the net will appear. And that's been a metaphor for my...
You always say what?
I always say leap and the net will appear.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about this though, because I know I love sharing that kind of motivational stuff as well. But I also know that if people are listening to that and rolling their eyes at us, or watching it and rolling their eyes at us, right? Like, girl, I need the net right now. Because what if the net doesn't appear for a year? And that's real.
And it very may well not. It may not.
What did you do for income as you were doing your explorational period?
Girl, I lived off of my savings. I went into debt. I almost got evicted from my apartment because I couldn't pay my rent. Everything was going into the business. Like, I literally sacrificed myself, everything to build my company. And I'm still doing it. Like, I'm still doing that. But there is something to be said about having almost like a delusional sense of self, of like what you
have to believe in yourself so much it's delusional. That's a quote that I saw that I love.
It's true. Like, I'm Delulu every day, every single day. Because if you're not delusional about yourself, how can you expect anyone to have you in,
get out of bed? You're just going to be crying. Like, you have to be like, oh no, today's going to be the day. Today's the day. Something's coming my way. Yeah.
Like, we're planting seeds. And I think a lot of people, they get so... They're so comfortable in their 9-to-5 and having their biweekly paycheck. They don't know what it's like. And I think because I was a freelancer for so long, I know what it's like to not have that kind of stability. So I think that did kind of prepare me in some ways.
And that's what I was looking for. Like, the freelancer life, you're already accustomed to a level of instability. So that was definitely an advantage you had to have that experience.
Yeah. Like, as a freelancer, you can have months where like, oh my God, I just made like $60,000 in 1 month. And then you don't make anything for 2 months. Like, when I launched Fenty Beauty, for example, I made so much money in like a 6-month period that I didn't actually need to work for like the rest of the year if I didn't want to. But of course, I'm not built that way. I'm always going to keep going, because I'm never going to rest on my laurels. You're only as good as your last gig. So I just wasn't built that way. But I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity, because that money that I saved was what helped start my business with Pretty Well Beauty. Even though that was money, even though I did Fenty, I launched Fenty, that was in 2017. I left Ralph Lauren in 2018. And I just let that money just kind of sit. I lived meagerly. I wasn't going shopping. I wasn't going on the trips. I didn't have the time either, because I was busy. But I think being a freelancer, you really learn how to manage your finances and to become very disciplined. Like, you have to almost live as though you have no money sometimes. Even though, because you just never know. You don't know what can happen. It could be months before you get your next gig, and you just never know. Then you never want to take that for granted.
I think that experience of launching Fenty Beauty, that is amazing. And these are the things I'm like, now, Jazmin, that was not in your bio. We have to talk about this. Because after doing that, I am sure that's given you so much exposure to like what it really takes to become a retailer. So how did that inform what you currently do and even how you went about your launch for the actual retail brand of Pretty Well Beauty?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't linear. There was a lot of ups and downs and a lot of just kind of like just asking. You
Yes.
know, when I started the website, I started it by I don't know how to design a website. I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So I had to go onto like Upwork and Fiverr to find someone who can design and code a website for me.
Yeah.
So my website that's currently in existence, that's not my original website. It's very different than how I started. And this is something I tell people a lot when they're first starting out. Don't get so bogged down and caught up in like what it looks like right now, because it's going to evolve.
Yeah.
It's going to change as you learn more and you grow. And that was very much the case for me. And it's the case for every single entrepreneur. Like even whether you have a brand or a service-based business, it doesn't matter. What you put out today is not going to be what it's going to look like 5 years from now, because it's going to change and it's supposed to change. And so once I realized that the website that I had originally had, it just wasn't working, it wasn't sustainable for what I needed to be able to grow it, that's when I was like, okay, I need to invest a bit more and really hire someone who understands what I'm trying to do. So I worked with a friend of mine who's a creative director who has a really great aesthetic, and she understands clean beauty.
Yeah.
And I worked with a branding expert to really understand and figure out what the tone and voice of my business was. I didn't know that you were supposed to do any of that stuff. I didn't know. Like, it was all just me kind of figuring it out as I went along. And even now I'm in the process of like, okay, I think I need to do another brand refresh, because I'm still not 100% there.
Figuring that
websites,
out.
Yeah, websites are living, breathing things. They're never done. And there's always going to be ways that you're going to need to improve and optimize them in order to reach your audiences and to be able to tell your message and to reach your revenue goals. And that's going to be the case with every business. That's just, there's no escaping that. And
what was the first like product that you sold though? And how did you decide to sell that product?
So I actually remember my very first online order. It was 3 bars of soap. It was a young girl from Queens.
Wow.
She never purchased again, so I don't know if she hated it or what. I don't know. But it was from a brand. We don't carry the brand anymore, but it was a brand called Wild Egg. Beautiful triangle soaps. They're handmade in like the traditional soap making way. They're cured for like 60 days. Like, they're beautiful soaps. And that was my very first sale. About a week or so after I launched the website, I hosted a little pop-up at a friend's hair salon, and I invited all of my friends, and that was like my first, like, kind of sales. Like, I think I did like $1,500 that day, and I was like, oh my God, I was so excited. I only had 12 brands. I launched with 12 brands, and so and I didn't have a lot because I could only afford to buy just so much of inventory. I didn't even sell through 25% of it, but I was just so grateful that people showed up. And
did you have the physical brands on you at that party?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I lugged everything over to the salon and like a giant suitcase.
That is so funny.
Like makeshift sign with like my logo at the time that said Pretty Well Beauty on it. It was so janky, but that's how I started, I had to start somewhere. Yeah. No, it was like, that's how I started.
What I'm trying to understand is, what was the trigger that made you think, okay, I need to go from having an Instagram page to actually selling products?
Yeah, I realized that I wanted to be in control of my future. I didn't want to give that to anybody else ever again. Yeah. And I knew that the only way I could do that was starting my own thing, where I didn't answer to anyone. I could do things how I like to do them, the way and the time frame in which I felt comfortable doing it, without the demands of being somewhere in the world at a certain time and answering to different people. I wanted to take control over my financial future. I also wanted to build something that I truly, truly had become very passionate about, that I cared about, and that was also benefiting the people that I wanted to benefit. You know, most of the products on the market that are marketed specifically towards women of color are filled with toxic ingredients, about 9 times more than those marketed to non-people of color. And that just never really sat well with me.
Yeah.
There's no coincidence that our community has such a large percentage of health issues that are related to female reproduction. I mean, like the birth rates and the death rates of women, Black women specifically, who are giving birth in this country. And it's not just the product, it's everything. But that is something that we use on a daily basis. Like the average woman uses about 14 products on ourselves every single day. And every single time, that's an opportunity to expose ourselves to something that could potentially cause a disease. And I don't want to fearmonger or scare anybody, but I want to give the information.
I know you're not trying to do that, but I think you bring up a really important point. I was talking to some friends of mine the other day. We went to brunch and we started just talking about microplastics and just how everything is toxic. And I was just talking about how overwhelmed it makes me. Like, I don't even know where to begin. But my friend said something really helpful. And she was just like, I just try like one thing at a time. And like, once I do that, then I'm like, okay, I'll try the next thing. So, you know, what advice would you give to people who are trying to have more clean products in our regimen? You know, where can we start? How can we approach this process?
Yeah, and your friend is correct. And I've always said this. It's like a lot of people think that they have to do a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
And they have to get rid of everything that they have and start from scratch. And that's just, first of all, that's not economical for most people. And also, you don't know what's going to work for you. So I say start with, when you run out of one thing, replace it with something that is a safe. A good place, obviously, shameless plug, Pretty Well Beauty.
Yes.
Everything there is safe. It really is a one-stop shop. It's the store that I wish existed when I started my journey 12, 13 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, you can start small. Like, read what is in the products that you are using, whether it's putting it in your mouth or on your skin. You need to understand what it is that you're putting on your body. And if you don't understand it, Google it. Like, we live in a world of information where now there's no excuse to be ignorant. Like, ignorance today is a choice. It's a decision. So Google it. If you don't understand what this word means, just Google it. And if you still have questions, DM me. Yeah. Like, I have people DMing me all the time. My friends, they'll text me like, hey, what do you think about this product? And I'll tell them if it's safe or not. Like, they use me as a resource. So I always tell people, use me as a resource. Go to Pretty Well Beauty's Instagram. We have our website. We have a list called the Aware List. And it's a list of all of the ingredients that I say that you should be aware of to stay away from. And if you see that on
really helpful,
then that is a good start. That's a good point to
I'll
start
there for sure. Yes.
And it's not just like the products that we're using. Like, it's our food, it's our water, like microplastics and forever chemicals. These are very much things that we should know about. Right. And once we have the information, we can make the best decisions for ourselves. It's a lot of people just don't know. So once you know, then we can do better.
Absolutely. We got to get back into your journey and make sure that the people understand. Now, why did you start? Now you're in the Oculus, which is super prime real estate in New York, but you had to build up to that, right? So why did you start with the website and not try to get a retail space right away?
So I didn't have the money. That's the short answer. I crunched the numbers and I realized, I'm probably going to need at least $1 million to be able to pull it off the way that I wanted to do it.
Yes.
And that wasn't feasible. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do with the resources that I have right now? And so the website was what made the most sense at the time. So I started off with the e-commerce site. I launched it in January of 2019 with 12 brands. And I just slowly built it from there. I added more brands. Today we have almost 60 brands at Pretty Well.
Yeah. How did you handle inventory and shipping them out?
Oh my gosh. So this is why I believe so much in the divine timing of life, and why, I say leap and the net will appear.
Hmm.
The apartment that I was living in when I launched Pretty Well Beauty was right next door to a post office. Now, when I moved into this
Ah,
apartment, I had no idea I was starting a business.
yeah.
So all of my inventory was stored in that apartment. I
Yeah.
was basically living in a beauty warehouse, and was not fun. It was
Oh
not.
my gosh, that does not sound fun. Yeah.
I couldn't. It was hard for me to keep track of inventory because everything was all like mashed together. I couldn't see what I
Mm,
had. I didn't have any sort of inventory tool to be able to track what I had other than like an Excel file. But then that was hard to keep track of. It was like, wait, did I send that out? Like, I wasn't on Shopify. Shopify, by the way, has been like a lifesaver for like
yes, we
helping me.
love to hear that.
So
Yeah.
now I have a way to be able to manage inventory in the way that I
Hmm.
didn't. But I didn't know that. I did. I'd known of Shopify back then, but one of the developers that I had spoken to build my website, he was like, "Okay, these are your options. You can either build it on Shopify or you can build it on WordPress." And I was like, "Well, what are the pros and cons?" And he had told me that one of the cons of Shopify is like, "Well, you won't own your template." And I was like, "Oh, I want to own my template. Like, I don't want
Isn't it so funny how
to."
some random thing could just be said to us and we're like, oh no, we need to own that. Oh no, we need
And that
control
just
of that.
became Bible. That just became Bible to me at the point. I was like, okay, no, we're making mine. We're making mine from scratch,
Yes.
and it broke all the time because it's WordPress, and I'm not a developer at it. Like anytime something went wrong, I had to pay money to have somebody fix it. I was like, it got to the point where I was like, I cannot keep dumping money into this thing that is
Yeah.
broke, keep breaking. So
No.
I bit the bullet and I transferred over. I did a whole rebrand,
Hmm.
everything. I just started completely from scratch and worked with some people and decided to migrate over to Shopify. And I
Okay.
haven't looked back. So it's been really, really, even though it costs more,
Yeah.
but it's much more efficient and cost
Oh
effective.
yeah, for sure.
So,
Shopify, they
yeah.
know what they're doing over there. They do. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. If you're starting a retail site, go ahead, get you a Shopify.
Just get your Shopify, and you can pick a template and you can customize it. And that's what I did. Like my whole thing was like, I don't want my website to look like a Shopify website. That was my whole thing. I wanted it to look elevated. I wanted to look editorial. I just wanted it to be an experience that I would enjoy, and I knew that the people that I knew would enjoy. So
Yes.
I worked really hard to make it look full, and it's a fully custom website. Like it's not just it's very coded to the T's. But if it breaks, it doesn't cost me anything to fix it because there's people at Shopify that
Exactly. And
I can help.
you'll
So
be back up getting sales before you know it.
yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
clutch. So about this $1 million though, right? About this $1 million to get a retail location. Wait, how long? Okay, so you launched in January 2019. How long were you
Yeah.
just online before you opened up your physical location?
So I opened up the physical store on Black Friday of 2022.
Ooh,
So
okay.
coming up on 2 years since I opened up the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a mad dash. Like I wanted to be open before Black Friday. That was my goal, to be open before, but I opened on Black Friday and I was very
Ooh,
grateful. So two of my friends, one of him is the founder of one of my brands that I carry,
yeah.
and another friend, we piled up all of my inventory from my apartment. We put it in boxes and put it in her car. It was so heavy. We were like dragging from my apartment to the Oculus at like 9 o'clock at
What?
night. Unloaded everything on a Tuesday. When I went there on Wednesday, my friend Ro was in town, who used to be the VP of merchandising for Saks. She happened to be in
Wow.
town. She's like, I'm going to merchandise your store. She came in, she
I love
organized
that. Oh my
everything
gosh. Oh,
before, and we opened that morning at 9 a.m. It was
good
like all
friends
hands
are
on deck.
priceless
My
and
friends are everything.
amazing. When it was solely an e-commerce website, what were the profits like? It seems like it was good. It was so good. You're like, oh, we need to make this a physical place too. So,
No,
what was that like?
not at
Yeah.
all. No, I was not making many. I was not making much at all. Like
Really?
my first year, 2019, I think I did about 15,000.
Ooh.
Um, my second year, 2020, we doubled that. And I think that was partially because of COVID, and people are trying to make more conscious, healthy decisions. And then, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement. That brought my sales up to maybe like 30, 35,000, but we weren't making money. Like it wasn't anything. The way I got my store really was divine and kismet. I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I asked the right person the right question.
Tell us more about this.
So when I just had the e-commerce, like people would always ask me, are you ever going to have a physical store? I'm like, yeah, I would love to. That's my goal. That's my dream. I just didn't have the capital in which to do that. So I remember during COVID, a lot of empty spaces were being offered to small businesses for free until they were able to find a long-term tenant. So I would just ask people like, hey, do you know of any like real estate developers or real estate investors who happen to have empty storefronts that they'd be willing to give to a small business until they find a long-term tenant? And most of them said no until I found myself at Dumbo House with a new friend of mine. She and I just randomly met at a party of a mutual friend that I wasn't even supposed to be at, mind you. And this is why I say, like, I trust the timing of my life, because I wasn't supposed to be at this party because I had other plans. But those plans fell through. So I showed up and I met this girl who I connected with immediately, became fast friends. And she's a member of Dumbo House, and she would invite me to come. And we were at Dumbo House on the rooftop one day, just hanging out. Malik Yoba comes over, and I know he liked her because she's gorgeous.
Don't tell his business now.
Listen, this is. Anyway, this is the story. So he comes and joins us. We all just end up becoming friends. We go to dinner afterwards, and he tells me that he has this real estate company on the side. And I was like, oh, well, do you know of any commercial real estate investors or developers who can help a small business until they find a long-term tenant? And he was like, no, I don't. But do you know the Durst family? I was like, no, who's the Durst family? He's like, you've never heard of Robert Durst? I was like, no. Anyway, he's friends. So Robert Durst, he's like one of the biggest real estate developers in New York City. He owns about an estimated 200 million square feet of commercial real estate. Nice. And his daughter, whose name is Anita, she has a nonprofit organization where she primarily works with like artists who are looking for a rehearsal space and performance space. But she just started working with small retail-based businesses to help them get into spaces. So long story short, Malik puts us on an email introduction, Anita and I. She responds in 5 minutes and with her cell phone number telling me to call her. So I called her and she's like, hey, I have a space in the Oculus. You interested? And that's how it happened. She got me this space because her dad is one of the main investors of the Oculus, and they donated that. They donated my space, which had been sitting empty for like 3 years, to Anita's organization to be able to give to a small business in need. And so that, my friend, is how I ended up at the Oculus.
You guys, when I tell you I have up the praise hands right now, because that is what I'm talking about. And I'm with you in that I solely believe what is meant for you is meant for you. It's on its way to you. I am 100% on the same page as you with that.
Yeah. So like, this is how my life has always been. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
I know. That's why I have the praise hands up. Like, whew.
That's how my life has always been, where I put out there my intention and I ask the people for what I need, and I just trust that it's going to find its way. And that's how I was able to get into the Oculus. So it's been a very hard journey. Nothing's been handed to me, but I didn't do it by myself, and I know that. And I'm grateful.
Oh my gosh, that is just such a beautiful story. And it's so powerful because what you will then be able to do, like you're going to pay it forward. One day you'll be putting someone on in the same exact way.
And I do any chance I get.
Yeah.
Every opportunity I get to be able to pour into somebody else who is just starting out. Like a young man came into my store last week looking for a job. He asked if I was hiring, and unfortunately, I would love to be able to hire more people. I just can't yet.
Yeah.
He sort of shared like his struggles and how hard it's been for him to find
Yeah.
and work. And he's a young man. He's in his early to mid 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking him, well, he was asking me for feedback, and like he said, do I look okay? Do I look presentable? And I was like, yes, you
Wow.
do. I can tell you put a lot of effort into your appearance. You look professional. You speak well. Like you're very articulate, and I can tell that you have been trying, and I don't want you to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, like, are you in school? And he said that he is not. And I said, well, what happened with school? So he's telling me his struggles with school. And I'm explaining to him, well, even though a degree is not always an indicator of success, there are lots of successful people who never even graduated from high school.
Yeah.
However, it does show that you have the ability to commit to something, and to finish something.
Yes.
And I think that will go a long way in your pursuit of finding an opportunity. And so I talked to him for probably about 20, 30 minutes. And I really do hope that what I shared with him sunk. It seemed like it did.
Yeah.
And I asked him, just keep me posted on how you're doing. I have so many young people who come into my store just to, Pretty Well Beauty's become almost like a a place for people to come just cry. And
oh no! Well, I hope they're crying and shopping.
They come there because they want to talk and they want to be poured into, and they know I'm going to do that. I could never turn anybody away.
Yeah, because your energy is so beautiful. And people can tell that. It's like literally drawing them into the store. And it's also really good to see you there when you go into a place like the Oculus and describe it for people who are not from New York, who don't even understand like how amazing the structure is and what it means to that area.
Oh, it's incredible. First of all, not only is it aesthetically gorgeous, the building is where Tower 2 was.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the energy is heavy. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. The energy is heavy, especially around 9/11 when we do the memorials. Like the Oculus is shut down. Even the store owners and employees are not even allowed to be there until a certain time on the actual date of 9/11 to observe, because it's just for family and loved ones and first responders. But the space is, I would say, one of the safest places you could ever be because of where it's located. So if you're ever in New York and you're not feeling a little bit safe, go to the Oculus, because it is the safest place you could find yourself. I do think there is a ghost in my store.
Oh my gosh. Don't say that.
No, but they're not harmful.
Wow, yeah. I never thought about that. Like that you would feel that part of the energy there. Yeah.
I see it. There's a drawer that she opens. It's only one. It's a drawer that she opens all the time. I think it's a woman because it's a beauty store. Like, it makes sense it would be a girl. I think it's just a trapped spirit, probably, who's there, who just is hanging out and likes to open this one drawer all the time.
Just playing with you.
Just letting me know that she's there. That's it. But yeah, no, the architect is a Spanish architect. The Oculus has been there for probably about 8 or 9 years, I want to say. It kind of looks like a giant, I describe it as like a giant sort of like almost like skeletal. It's like a giant like dinosaur skeletal structure. It's a very close to 9/11 Memorial Museum. It's just, it's the trains, all the, it's a beautiful building.
And it just looks like money. Like when you look at it, you're like, oh, this is expensive.
And it is. It's very expensive. There's it's a subway hub, so you can get all the trains go through there, including the PATH train to go to New Jersey. So it's a very transient place, and you can see and meet all kinds of different people. And there's tons of shops and restaurants in there. And they've really put in a lot of resources to build out the
Awesome.
space and the experience for people.
Does that help with the foot traffic? Like the fact that people are coming, they're going, are you getting a lot more visibility as a result of that?
Well, there's always been foot traffic in the Oculus. It's just that, Pretty Well Beauty is not a big, well-known name just yet. So most people, when they go and they're shopping, they're looking for the Sephora, they're looking for the Kiehl's or the Apple Store, things that they know.
Yeah.
People literally just stumble into Pretty Well because they out of curiosity. They're like, oh, what's this? I never heard of this before. They'll come in because of curiosity.
Yeah.
And they come in, and 9 times out of 10, they leave with something. Most people don't leave there empty-handed, which is
Yes.
really, really amazing.
Yes.
I was actually they're one of the areas of the Oculus that sort of is the part that's near where the PATH train entrance is. There's a very big poster, like bulletin board size of my face there. Letting people know that Pretty Well Beauty is in there.
Nice.
And they gifted that to me. Like that was free advertising. So they really do try to support the smaller businesses that are in there. Pretty Well Beauty is the only Black-owned beauty store in the Oculus ever. And there's only one. Yeah.
Before we jump into the lightning round, we have to talk about the 2 M's, marketing and money. So, okay, you're in the Oculus. Like you said, people don't know you all the way yet. How are you going about marketing?
So our biggest tool has been Google and word of mouth. So I started investing in Google shopping ads almost 2 years ago, I want to say. So that drives traffic to the website. And yeah, really word of mouth. Word of mouth, like I have on our website, when you're checking out and you get through the checkout process, I have a little questionnaire. It's literally just one click, like, how did you hear about us? And I can see and I can find out. So word of mouth and Google are like the top 2 places that people are finding out about Pretty Well Beauty. Like the power of community is so strong. Like I have friends who are talking about Pretty Well Beauty all the time. Like I just had a call today with a woman in Portugal who is she works as a CFO for small businesses. And I found out about her through one of my friends, Carrie, who is literally my number 1 customer. And
shout out to Carrie.
Shout out to Carrie.
Yes.
And Carrie goes to Portugal all the time, where this girl is, this young woman, she lives. And she's like, oh my God, like Carrie's the one who introduced me to your product. She comes to Portugal and she brings me all your products and they're so amazing. So and we ship worldwide too, by the way. That's something that I'm really excited when I see. I got a sale from South Korea. What? Yeah, I get sales from Germany. Yeah, like I get sales from all these random places. And I'm like, I don't even know how they found out about Pretty Well Beauty, but they're finding it somehow. It's probably through word of mouth or social media.
Yeah. How big is your team these days?
Oh, it's tiny. I'm the only one who's full time.
Okay.
So I have 1 part-time sales associate. I have a bookkeeper. I have someone who does my email marketing, Kelsey. I just brought on a freelance social media manager. She just started. I had someone previously for like the last 7 months, but that didn't work out. So I just brought on someone new for that. And then I have a director of commerce she's been with me for like maybe 3 or 4 months, I want to say now.
And how do you handle shipping these days?
I do it. I'm literally the one who's doing it. All of our inventory is held at the store. We have like a back stock room. So I do all the shipping from the store. UPS and FedEx comes to the store every day for pickup and drop offs. And then there's also, again, a post office right across the street from the Oculus.
Look at that.
So when I'll just go there after I close because they're open until 8. I usually close at 7. I'll run over there with my big knapsack, lugging over packages before going home with my dog in tow. I bring my dog to work every day. She's our chief cheer officer.
Oh, so that's cute.
Someone actually said, "Oh, bring your dog every day." That's such a smart marketing strategy. I was like, it was not a strategy. I promise you. I just don't want to leave my child at home all day, every day. Yeah. So she comes in, and there's been people who've come into the store just because Poppy, my dog, was in there, and they ended up shopping. Yeah.
That's so cute. So let's talk a little bit more then about money. So, a lot of people, we know how hard it is to stay in business, and a lot of people lose money. They ended up, abandoning the business for reasons about money. What's been your experience? Are you profitable? Are you on your way there? And what are you doing about it?
So currently, no. Currently, we are operating at a deficit. We are losing money right now. And I think it's primarily because I've invested more in hiring people this year, like bringing on a director of commerce,
Mm.
hiring a social media manager. So like payroll expenses have gone up. Inventory costs have gone up just because cost of goods have gone up across the industry. Like brands are having to increase their prices because the cost of their raw materials have gone up. I have more expenses now operating a physical business, from
Yeah.
rent to utilities, cleaning services, insurance, like all of these different things. I just started paying myself last year. I didn't pay myself anything until last year. The expenses have gone up and the revenue has not increased big enough to be able to be profitable, but I'm hopeful. I'm planning on fundraising this year, so
Okay.
that will help when I am successful at that. I'm not going to say if. I'm going to put that out there that
Absolutely. Yes.
to raise the funds that I need to be able to grow
Yes.
my team and expand my business. But I think that um, being in the red is not always necessarily a bad thing, especially when it comes to taxes.
Hmm.
FYI, it does
Yeah.
reduce your tax liability quite a bit.
Hmm.
But I think that most businesses, it takes a while for them to see profit. Most businesses don't even survive past a year. And I think that is primarily because of money, but also I think a lot of people give up way too soon.
Hmm.
I think people are they and this isn't everyone, but I think a lot of people they just don't necessarily see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can kind of just see what's in front of them and they panic and then
Yeah.
they react.
Yeah. I
Believe me, there's been plenty of times where I'm like, let me just see what I can cash out and then just be out.
Yeah.
Like
Like, we tried
go
it.
start a new
I
job
I
somewhere
got this
else.
money. Yep, yep.
I've had this conversation with myself so many times. I've fantasized about it, but it's like I can't do that because there's too many people depending on me. There's too many
Hmm.
people that I have to help. There's too many people that would be disappointed.
Yeah.
Primarily myself. So that's what keeps me motivated to keep
Yes.
going, even though the money is not there yet. I know that the money will come.
Yeah, and I've been speaking to a lot of different entrepreneurs, and I even see people posting about this on social media. Like, look, these last few years have been tricky years, and then there was like this cash injection that a lot of businesses got because of the Black Lives Matter movement and all of that, and now the businesses are completely like shutting that down. So it's
Yeah,
like such a flip, and you're at that point where you're like, wait, is this going to work? Should I give up? And blah, blah, blah. And I heard a quote the other day that was kind of like, this is the interest you pay for the life that you want. Like, no one said it was going to be easy, and no one said that you're going to have every single year in the green. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep going. And I think that's just an important message that we should talk about and share even more, so everyone knows like you're not crazy if you might be having a harder time gaining profitability, or you were profitable and now your business is in the red. Like, keep going, keep pushing. if you
it's true.
know
You're
if you
right.
know what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are entering into a recession. This is also an election year, so
Yes.
things are very
Right, I didn't even talk
unpredictable.
about the recession piece.
Right.
Yeah.
And the beauty industry as a whole is extremely competitive. And so
Hmm.
when you are a small business, specifically an independent business that doesn't have venture capital behind you, the challenge is just so much greater.
Yes.
But I just try to take every day, day by day,
Yep.
as much as I can. And it is hard to see the businesses that you've seen, that you've loved, and you've watched them growth and you've seen their success, then like announce on Instagram, like, we're closing. Like,
Yeah.
it's really sad to see that, and it makes you question, like, oh my God, like, am I next? Like, can that happen to me? And I'm not saying that no one is immune to it, but I think that's where the mindset sort of comes in. You have to just kind of almost ignore that to a point, and not absorb that as your reality, and just kind of just remember to stay focused and keep your eye on your journey. And that's what I'm trying my best to do. Every single day.
That's why I keep talking to you. Yeah, that's why I keep talking to you guys about mindset, because like you always knew it, but when like things are easy and like when it's like, you're kind of coasting, you're like, oh, of course I'm in a good mindset. Like, but then when things you're not coasting, you're like, oh wait, I gotta protect my mind. I gotta make sure that I don't give up because it's no longer easy. So, okay, now let's go into the lightning round, y'all. As you can see, there's lots for me and Jazmin to talk about, but we are going to wrap this up by finding out some of the first things that come to mind when I ask her these questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Number one, what is a resource, not Google, that has helped you in your business that you can share with the Side Hustle Pro audience?
I would say Shashama.
Okay.
It's a Anita Durst organization. That helped me get my store. Okay. That has been a valuable resource of mine.
How do you spell that?
So it's CHASHAMA.
Okay, we'll be sure to link to that. Number two, who is a non-celebrity Black woman entrepreneur that you would trade places with for a day, and why?
Lisa Price, who I've spoken to.
Yes.
And she gave me some good advice.
Oh, what was that?
So I want to start a hair care brand. So she told me to start in my kitchen like she did.
Yes. And
to start experimenting a bit, kind of tapping back into my roots a bit. So
I love that. I can't wait for your hair care brand. Number three, what is a non-negotiable part of your day?
Sleep.
Oh, so you're getting good sleep?
No. That's why it's non-negotiable.
Number four, what's a personal habit that has helped you significantly in your business?
Mindfulness meditation.
Any apps or anything that you recommend?
I listen to a lot of podcasts by Joe Dispenza.
Okay. And then finally, what is your parting advice for fellow Black women side hustlers who want to be their own boss but are worried about losing a steady paycheck?
If you don't believe in yourself, nobody is going to. It sounds corny and cheesy, but it's 100% true. Like, you have to go in all 100% on yourself. You just have to, you have to commit to it. And I think making the decision to commit is the hardest part. But you have to do it if you really want to have a good chance of success.
I love that. Thank you for the reminder. It's so true that there's so many times that we're showing up in the world and we're like, why won't they buy my product? Why is this not going well? Why won't I get the funding? It's because like we can see through you. We know you're not even sure if this is a good idea. People can tell. Yeah, people can tell. So you got to make sure you're all the way fully in on what you're trying to do. And if you're not, like I said, work on that mindset so that you can get all the way in.
Yep. No one's going to invest in your company until you fully invested in it yourself.
Yes.
And that means investors and customers alike.
Yep. So Jazmin, where can people connect with you and Pretty Well Beauty after this episode?
You can connect with me on Instagram at Pretty Well Beauty. DM me. I am the one who's responding.
Okay.
And if you have a longer message, you can just send an email to hello@prettywellbeauty.com.
All right, guys. And there you have it. I'll talk to you next week. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Side Hustle Pro. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other side hustlers just like you to find the show. And if you want to hear more from me, you can follow me on Instagram at Side Hustle Pro. Plus, sign up for my 6-bullet Saturday newsletter at sidehustlepro.co/newsletter. newsletter. When you sign up, you will receive weekly nuggets from me, including what I'm up to, personal lessons, and my business tip of the week. Again, that's sidehustlepro.co/newsletter to sign up. Talk to you soon.